Thank you for joining us for the Start Omaha Work Week. Today, we are featuring Julie Dort, who's going to be going over Microsoft Excel basics with everyone. Just a few quick housekeeping items. All questions need to be asked in the Q&A feature. Please be respectful. If you want to leave a comment in the chat, please do so. And if you would like to watch this program again, the recording will be posted on our DoSpace YouTube page later in the week, next week, excuse me. As a reminder, after each program, make sure you head to Beanstack, our community engagement platform. There you can mark that you attended one of our webinars throughout the week, which enters you to win some prizes. We are giving away 3 gift cards to local small businesses and 1 headshot session. And you can do this at dospace.beanstack.org. I'm going to post the URLs associated that we have, which is going to be the DoSpace Beanstack, the YouTube, and our own DoSpace website.
All right, well, thank you and good evening, everybody. My name is Julie and I will be your facilitator tonight for Start Omaha MS Excel Basics. Thank you so much for the DoSpace for providing the Start Omaha week. I've attended 4 or 5 sessions myself and they have all been excellent. Just to let you know, I do have the Q&A open on another monitor over here, so I will be monitoring that. So if you have any questions, comments, please feel free to post them for me. Going forward, my email address is juliehamiltondort65@gmail.com. So if you have any questions or about Excel or the Microsoft Office suite, I would be happy to assist you. So some common uses for Excel are to calculate profit and loss, producing graphs and charts, and storing and sorting data. There's many more options for you, but those are some of the things that we're going to be looking at tonight and the most common uses for MS Excel. So our agenda for tonight, the first thing we're going to do is take a quick tour of Excel. Then I'm going to show you how to use some tips and tricks within Microsoft Excel that will save you some time. We are going to be creating a profit loss workbook tonight and inserting charts if time permits. Go ahead. So I just pulled up a blank workbook and you can see that in cells A1, 2, and 3. I have some labels in here and I wanted to share that with you because a lot of people are kind of scared of Excel. And if you break it down into bite-sized pieces, into small bite-sized pieces, there's only 3 things that can go in each one of these cells. And that's a label, a value, a formula, or a function. Up at the very top, we have all of our ribbons. So we start with the home ribbon, and within each one of the ribbons, you have different groupings. We'll be looking at quite a few of these features over the next hour. Down below that, you have something called the name box. So when you are inside of a cell in Microsoft Excel, it gives you an address, and that address is the column first and the row second. So if you're not sure where you are, you can look in the name box and it will tell you exactly the address of where you are within your worksheet. Just to the right of that, you have what's called the formula bar, and you can insert data, values, formulas, or functions from the formula bar, or you can enter them within the cell itself. Like I said, down below that, we have all of our columns across the top, our rows down the side. At the very bottom, it defaults to 1 worksheet. If you're used to working in an older version of Excel, it may default to 3 worksheets. But no worries, if you need extra worksheets or you want to delete one, we can do that very easily, and we will be going through that in further detail tonight. A question that I get quite frequently is when I go to save my file, do I have to save each worksheet or does it save into the 1 workbook? And the answer is it will save into 1 workbook. So if you think of it like a textbook, A textbook has multiple chapters in it, and it is simply one book. So when we go to save our file at the end of the webinar tonight, we will just do one file and save. The plus sign next to that allows us to add additional worksheets to our workbook. And we can go ahead and delete very easily by hovering your mouse over worksheet 2, right-clicking and deleting. Over to the right of that, you've got 3 different views. You have your normal view, which we will be working in tonight. You also have a page layout view, and you have a page break view, which is handy when you go to print Excel. Just to the right of that, you have the ability to zoom in or zoom out. I tend to zoom out, especially when I'm conducting these webinars, so that it's a little bit easier for you to see, but to be quite honest, it's easier for me to see. All right, so that's our tour. The next thing that I wanted to show you was just a few tricks that you can teach Excel. So I'm going to go ahead and click inside of C1. And at this point in time, I can go ahead and start entering data. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to enter a couple of values in here. And you can see that 3, 6, let's say that, for instance, you want to count by threes to 99 for whatever reason. You don't need to sit here and put in 9, 12, 15, and so on. You can use what's called the fill handle. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select C1 and C2. And I simply did that by hovering my mouse over C1, clicking, holding down my mouse, and dragging down to C2. At this point in time, I have those 2 cells selected. Now you might be saying to yourself, but it doesn't look like C1 is highlighted. In Excel, whenever you select a range of cells, it will not gray out the very first cell that you highlight. So no worries. What you're looking for is the green border around the cells that you have highlighted. In the lower right-hand corner, you have what is called the fill handle. And you'll note that as I move my mouse over that fill handle, that little green box, my mouse face changes. Being cognizant of your mouse face when you're working in Excel is extremely important because it will determine what function your computer is going to take or the Excel workbook is going to take. So when I hover my mouse over the fill handle, I get a black plus sign, and I can just click and hold down on my mouse and pull down, and I'm just going to wait till I get to 99 here, and there we go. So we taught Excel a little trick, and you can do that by counting by threes, by fives, whatever the case may be. You can go ahead and highlight those again, use my fill handle, and it will count by fives at this point in time. Excel is extremely intuitive. So if I click in G1 and I enter today is Thursday, so I'm just going to go ahead and put in Thursday. If I want to enter the days of the week, I do not need to show Excel a pattern, or I don't need to type in everything. I can go ahead and just hover my mouse over and pull, and it will fill in the days of the week for me. Now, if I abbreviate the days of the week, so if I abbreviate Thursday, Excel will also abbreviate the remainder of the days of the week. And I can use my fill handle going across the row, or I can use my fill handle going down the column, either one. Whoops, and that filled in, that's interesting, that filled in a series. So if I wanted that to go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whoops. What am I doing here? Hang on for 1 second. Go ahead and delete that. Hmm. All right, let me see if, interesting. All right, there we go. I'm not sure what happened there, a little glitch. It's been my day for technology. So there we go. Now it seems to be up and running. So Excel was just a little lagging behind. So when I typed in the abbreviation for Saturday and then used my fill handle and pulled down, it abbreviated the days of the week. If I come down and I type in April, I can go ahead and use my fill handle and pull across, and it is going to fill in the months. So those are a few things about Excel that I wanted to start with. The next thing that I want to do is I want to clear all of this data. And there's a couple of ways that I can go about this. I could click an A1 and highlight everything, but there's a little bit of a faster way to approach this. So in between column A in row 1, you have a triangle pointing down towards your worksheet. If I hover my mouse over that triangle and click, it will select my entire worksheet, and I can just hit the delete key and it will delete all of the data within my worksheet. Some other approaches that you could take would be to do Control A, which is the keyboard shortcut for select all. All right, let me go ahead and minimize this. And I want to show you the template that we are going to complete tonight. So what I have here is just a profit loss template. And this is for a fictitious business of snow removal, mowing, fertilizing, and landscaping. And you can see that across the bottom, I have 5 different worksheets that are within this workbook. So I have a tab for snow removal, a tab for mowing, a tab for fertilizer, and a tab for landscaping. So let's say, for instance, if I go to snow removal and I enter the date, so we'll go back to January, we'll just say January 1st, and the snow removal was for James Doe, the invoice number, and the total cost. So let's say it's $120. So at this point, the way that I have the worksheet set up is that the $120 totals down here. So as I enter the snow removal, it will continue to add the snow removal that I've made from snow removal for the month of January. If I scroll over, it also gives me my total over in column Q. But if I go back to year to date, you can see that I have the 2 worksheets working together so that everything ends up in the year to date. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about how we create this particular template. Go ahead and move that over to another monitor that I have over here. And I'm going to go back to our blank Excel workbook. So in A1, I'm going to start off with just putting in some labels. And that's going to be the date and snow removal. Now you'll note that when I typed in snow removal, it bleeds into column C. And I'll teach you how to adjust your column width and your row height here in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and put in all of my labels in row 1 first, and then we'll talk about that. So in column C, we want invoice number. And then I'm going to go over to D1 and we'll just start with January. Again, I'm going to use my fill handle and just pull across until I have reached the month of December. And let upon my mouse. Okay, so we have our labels in for our snow removal worksheet. Let's talk about how I adjust the column width. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. Stone removal obviously is not fitting in column B. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select column B. I'm going to do so by hovering my mouse over the letter B. You'll note that I get a down arrow. When I click, it selects that entire column. And if I go over to my cells group and to format, I have the option of selecting column width or auto fit column width. We're going to start with talking about column width. So when I click on column width, it's going to populate this window that says, okay, your column width is 8.43, which is what Excel defaults to with the width of every column. So I can go ahead and I can just guess, maybe type in an 11 and click on OK. We're not quite there yet, so I'm going to go back to my format and to column width, and let's just say 15. And it increases the column width to 15. So that's one way that you can increase your column width. I'm going to go ahead and scoot over here to column L and select column L. I'm going to go back to the format option, and I'm going to click on auto fit column width. And what auto fit column width will do is Excel will determine how wide the column needs to be in order for the label to fit. So when I click on that, it automatically adjusts it for me. So those are two ways that you can adjust the column width. Now note that the same apply for the rows. If I go back to format, you have row height and auto fit row height. So you can use those same procedures for increasing or decreasing the row height. Another way that you can increase or decrease the column width will be to, again, select the column that you want to edit, and then I'm going to hover my mouse in between columns D and E. At this point, I get arrows to the east and the west, and I can just click and hold down on my mouse and I can pull out, and that will increase or decrease the column width depending on which direction I'm taking my mouse. Now, if you want Excel to auto fit and you would prefer to use the mouse as opposed to going to the cells group and format, you can just go ahead and hover your mouse and double click. And it will auto fit the column width for you. Now you might be thinking to yourself, it seems like an awful lot of work because we have 12, 13, 15 columns here. I want to do this all at once, and you can and you should. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select columns A all the way over to column O. And any one of these options you can utilize. So if I go back to format and to column width, I can go ahead and just type in a number. You'll note that the column width, that there's no width in there like there was when we first started with the 8.43. And that's because I have various column widths. So if I just type in a 15, it will adjust all of my columns at the same time. Likewise, if I go back to format and to auto fit column width, it will auto fit all of my columns at the same time. Now, if you prefer to use your mouse for something like this, with all of them selected, I can go ahead and I can pull out just a little bit in between any two of the columns, and it will adjust all of the columns at one time. If you want to auto fit the columns all at once, you can hover your mouse in between any two columns and double click, and it will auto fit the columns. Now, personally, I like the columns all to be approximately the same width. So I'm going to go back to column width, and I'm just going to type in maybe a 14 and hit the enter key. And we have the columns all standard. Okay. So that's a little bit about the column width and the row height. The next thing I want to do is just jazz this up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and select A1 all the way over to O1. I'm going to come underneath my font group this time. And I'm going to go to my paint can. I'm going to click on the down arrow. It will give me a color palette. I'm going to go ahead and select the dark green. And then right next to that, you have your font colors. So I can highlight that. And I'm just going to select white so we can see those a little bit easier. If you want to, you can go underneath the alignment group and we can center all of those labels very easily. All right, so we have the that set up. The next thing that I want to do is just underneath January, I'm going to come down a few rows and I'm going to click maybe in D17. Now it doesn't really matter which cell you set this up in because you can very easily insert or delete columns or rows as you're working with your worksheet. So I'm going to go ahead and select D17 and I'm going to highlight all the way over to O17. Underneath the styles group, I'm going to click on the down arrow and I'm going to put in the format for totals. When I deselect that, you can see that I have my totals in there. So what I want to do at this point is I want to go ahead and I want to add my first formula. So that formula is going to look like this. Every formula in Excel starts with the same character, and that's an equal sign. So when I type in the equal sign, then I'm going to use a built-in function in Excel, which is the sum function. Now you'll note that as I begin to type in sum, it populates all of the built-in functions within Excel that starts with SUM. And you can do one of two things. If you want to, you can go ahead and double click on sum, and it's going to assist you with building your formula. Or you can manually type in equal sum and open parentheses. And now we need to put in our data range. So my data range is going to be from D2 through D16 at this point. And the through is a colon. So I'm just going to type in the colon and then put in D16 and close my parentheses, hit the enter key, and it will come up with a 0 simply because we don't have any data in here yet. Now you'll also note that when it comes up with a 0, if I look underneath my numbers group, that cell is a general, and we want to change that to currency. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the $sign, and it will insert the $sign for me. So if I come up here to D2 and type in, $3,500, you'll note that Excel automatically puts in the $sign, the comma, and the decimal places. The next thing that I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to format the rest of my cells to currency or accounting. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, if you click on the drop-down menu, you also have the option for currency. The only difference between currency is where the $sign is placed within the cell. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on currency just to show you the difference. When I click on currency, you'll note that the $sign is flush with the first digit of your number, as opposed to accounting, where it's flush with the left-hand side. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. I'm going to make this all consistent. We're going to go back from currency to accounting. I'm going to leave that 3,500 in there just for a second because we're going to come over to Q16. And what I want to do is I want to create a total within this worksheet just for snow removal. So I'm going to put in my label total, and then I'm going to click in Q17. At this point in time, I'm going to go ahead and create another sum function. So I'm going to type in my equal sign and equal sum, open parentheses. Now, Earlier, I manually typed in the cell range. You can either type that in or you can utilize your mouse and you can highlight the cell range that you want that function within that function. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the enter key and it tells me that I have my 3,500. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete the 3,500. And we've got a little bit more work to do. So on this, on my snow removal worksheet, I also want that to reflect down where it says sheet 1. So I'm just going to come down here. I'm going to double click on sheet 1 and I'm going to type in snow removal. All right, let me go ahead and pop back to our template for a second. I'm going to bring the template back over here. So you can see that we have snow removal. We also need to put in mowing, fertilizer, and landscaping. Rather than going through all of those steps again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to snow removal. I'm going to go ahead and right click and I'm going to tell Excel that I want to move or copy this worksheet. So I'm going to right click and then left click on move or copy. It will populate this window. It says, okay, what do you want to do? And what I want to do is I want to create a copy of this worksheet and I want to move it to the end. So when I click on OK, it duplicates the snow removal worksheet, which will enable us to go ahead and put in our additional categories. So our additional categories are mowing, fertilizer, and landscaping. So I'm just going to come up to B1 and we'll put in mowing. And then I want to change the name down at the bottom and we'll put in mowing down there. We're going to do this again because we need to put in 2 additional worksheets. So I'm going to go ahead and hover my mouse over the word mowing and right click, highlight move or copy and left click. Again, I'm just going to duplicate mowing, move to the end and create a copy. When I click on OK, that will allow us to go ahead and put in fertilizer. And then I want to change that up in B1 as well. Okay, so we've got 3 out of the 4. We have 1 more that we need to complete, and that is landscaping. So again, I'm going to right click over fertilizer, highlight move or copy. I'm going to copy fertilizer, tell it to move to the end, create a copy, click on OK. And now we have the ability to put in landscaping. There we go. Okay, so now we have 4 worksheets within our workbook that are ready to go. The next thing that we need to do, if we go back to our template, the next thing that we need to go do is create our year to date. And for our year to date, we need to add another worksheet to our workbook. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the plus sign. And it adds in worksheet 6 for me. I'm going to go ahead and double click on worksheet 6 and just type in YTD. Now you'll notice on my template that year to date was over at the beginning. So I want to move these around. And to do that, I'm going to hover my mouse over year to date. I'm going to left click and hold down my mouse. I'm just going to pull that over to slot number 1, so to speak. And when I let up on my mouse, it reorganizes the order of the worksheets. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is just to put in income. And then I'm going to once again put in the months of the year. So I'm going to grab my fill handle and pull over to December. Again, we need to do some formatting here. So I'm going to go ahead and keep with my same pattern. I'm going to fill the background in with a dark green. I'm going to select white text, and we need to adjust the column width. So I'm going to highlight A through M. And then when I go to format and to column width, we'll go ahead and put in a 14, hit the enter key, and we're good. So that's our income. And then down below that, we want to add our 4 categories. So our categories are snow removal, mowing, fertilizer, and landscaping. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to put a total in there. And we'll set up the labels first, and then we'll move over and create our formulas. So down below that, I'm just going to put in expenses. And we'll go down a few rows and put in our total expenses. And we'll go down a few rows below that and put in our profit loss. Okay, so I do want to go ahead and format expenses, total expenses, and profit loss to appear the same way that income in January through December. And there's a couple of ways that I can handle this. I could select each one of these items, expenses, total expenses, and profit loss. And I did that by holding down the control key as I was clicking. So I selected expenses, then I held down my control key, and I selected the additional 2 cells that I wanted to edit. The control key will allow you to select non-adjacent items in Excel and many of the Microsoft Office products. I could then come up underneath my font group and click on the green background and my white text. Now I'm going to go ahead and undo that because I also want to show you another tool within Excel that you could utilize. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click in cell A1, and I'm going to come up here underneath the clipboard group, and I'm going to click on Format Painter. And what Format Painter will do is it's going to pick up exactly how it sounds, the format, meaning the font calibre, the size 11, the background of green, and the font of white. And I'm just going to go ahead and double click on that. This will allow me to apply that format to each one of these. Now you'll note that my mouse face now changed again. I've got a white plus sign in the paintbrush. So if I hover my mouse over A8 and click, it will apply that format. In order to turn the Format Painter off, you can do one of 2 things. You can come up here and click on Format Painter, or you can hit the Escape key on your keyboard. All right, so now I'm going to come up and I'm going to create some formulas within our year-to-date worksheet. Again, the first thing that I want to do is just highlight all the way over to December. I'm going to go back up to Styles and apply the total. All right, so with this formula, what I want to do is I want to add cells B2, B3, B4, and B5. So I'm going to come down to B6. I'm going to type in the equal sign again, the function sum, open my parentheses, and then I can type in B2 colon B5. And you can see that it highlights those cells. So that's one thing that you want to make sure that you're paying attention to, that you're cognizant of, is that when you're entering formulas, is it selecting the correct data? Very important for you to look at that. Another question that I get quite frequently is, does it matter if the columns are uppercase or lowercase? And the answer is no, absolutely not. Excel does not care whether you have the uppercase or lowercase letter when you are entering in the column. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the enter key. Again, I need to change the number format. So I'm going to select B6, come back up to general, and I'm just going to apply the accounting format. Now that I have that cell, I'm going to go ahead and use my fill handle to copy that across and let up on my mouse. Now, when I copied that across, you might be saying to yourself, but what did it really copy? So let's take a look at the formulas that it copied. I'm going to go ahead and hold down the control key and the tilde, and that will put me into a different mode that allows me to look at all of my formulas. So you can see that when I use the fill handle, Excel knew to go from column B to column C to D and E and F and so on. And if I arrow over, likewise for the remainder of my fill. To turn off the formulas, I'm just going to go ahead and hit the control key and the tilde again. It's just like a light switch. You can turn that on and off. All right, for my total expenses, I need to do the same thing. So I'm going to come down to B14, and I'm going to put in my sum function. I'm just going to go ahead and highlight B9 through B13. You can close the parentheses, or if you don't, Excel will do it for you when you hit the enter key. Once again, I need to apply the accounting format, and then I'm going to fill this across all the way to December. Go ahead and scroll back over. So now what I want is to create just a simple subtraction. I want to find out, did I make money in January? Did I lose money in January? What happened? So I'm going to type in the equal sign. And at this point in time, what we want to do is we want to subtract B6 minus B14. And when I hit my enter key, it automatically puts the accounting in for me. Just going to drag that across as well. All right. So I only left room for 4 or 5 expenses here. I want to show you something else before we move on. What if I need to insert a row? What happens to my formula when I do that? And just to let you know, if you do need to edit a formula, you can do that in one of 2 ways. I double clicked on B14. It shows me my formula again. Or I can come up to my formula bar and I can edit from there. No worries, we don't need to do any editing. To insert another row, what I'm going to do is hover my mouse over, for instance, row 11. And when you go to insert a row, the row is going to be inserted above whatever row you select. Likewise, if you need to insert a column, the column is going to be inserted to the left of the column that you select. So I'm going to go ahead and select row 11 and to come up underneath the cells group this time and just go ahead and click on insert. Now you'll note what happened with our formula was Excel automatically changed the data range from B9 to B13 to B14, and it did that across the board. So if you need to insert additional rows, it will automatically adjust your formula for you. Another way that you can insert a row or a column is just to hover your mouse over the row, right click, and insert. It will insert another row, and again, your formula will automatically adjust. Okay, let me go ahead and let's skip over to the end here. See, what I'm running into here is I have so much information on my worksheet is that I'm having to scroll back and forth. And I want to eliminate that because I don't want to have to say, okay, I need to see what's in column A. But when I'm scrolling back and forth, I can't see which row I'm working with. So I'm going to show you another little feature of Excel that's very handy. And that is underneath the view ribbon. Underneath the view ribbon and the Windows group, you have something called freeze panes. So if I click on the down arrow, I have three options underneath freeze panes. That is to freeze the panes. That's the last one we're going to look at. It will automatically freeze the top row for you, or it will freeze the first column for you. So let's start by looking at freezing the top row. So if I click on freeze the top row, when I scroll down, row 1 stays in place, so I can always see those labels. The other option that I have is to freeze the first column, but what's going to happen is it will unfreeze the top row and it will freeze the first column. So I'm going to go ahead and click on freeze the first column, and then I'm just going to scroll over, and you'll see that that first column is always visible for us as we're working across our worksheet. Now, the last option, and probably the most valuable in my opinion, is the fact that you can freeze both the rows and the columns. And that is it's going to freeze dependent on which cell you have selected. So right now I have B2 selected, meaning that when I go to freeze the panes, and I do need to unfreeze the first column before it will allow me to do this, meaning that when I go to freeze panes, what's going to happen is it's going to freeze everything above the cell that I have selected and to the left of where I have selected. So I'm going to go ahead and click on freeze panes, and now I can scroll down and I can scroll across, and both row 1 and column A are frozen. So likewise, if you want to see all of your figures from A1 or rows 1 down to row 6, I can select B7, go back to the freeze panes, unfreeze the first row and the first column, and I can refreeze that, and it will freeze those first 6. So I'm just going to come back up here to B2, and we're going to go ahead and freeze row 1 and column A. Okay, so let's see, where are we? What else do we need to do in order to replicate our template? All right, so the next thing that we need to do is we need to put in some totals in column O. So I'm going to move over here to column O. And I'm just going to put in another label. I'm going to go ahead and use my format painter to make that the same, and then we're going to insert some additional sum features. So equal sum, and I'm going to open my parentheses. I'm just going to highlight from B2 all the way over to M2. When I hit my enter key, you note that we don't have any data in there, so it gives me that 0. I'm going to go ahead and decrease this a little bit. And we will want to go back to our home ribbon and apply the accounting format. Now I can use my fill handle and I can go ahead and I can just pull that down and it will give me my yearly totals. And I want to do the same thing for expenses. So I'm going to come down to 09 and just equal sum again, open parentheses. And I'm going to select from B9 all the way over to M9 and hit the enter key. Apply the accounting format. And I can pull down again to total expenses. Okay, then the next thing that we want to do, I'm going to go down to 020, and we're just going to create another simple subtraction formula. So I'm going to click in my total for my income, which is going to be in 06 minus 016. Yes. Okay. And I just realized that I need to apply that to the total. All right. So let's see how we're doing. So now if I come over here to snow removal and put in my date, I'm going to start by putting in, again, just maybe January 20th. Now, when I type in January 20th, you'll note that on the template that I showed you, it showed us the day of the week and it spelled out January the 20th. So when I have this selected, what I can do is come back up to custom and click on the down arrow. If I come all the way down to number formats and to date, these are all the different formats that you have for the date, and you can select any one of these that you would like. I personally like it when it gives me the day of the week, so I'm going to go ahead and select Wednesday, March 14th, 2012, which is my sample. Click on OK, and I get these pound signs. Don't worry if you get those pound signs. You didn't do anything wrong. The only thing it's telling you is that, hey, I needed some more space in here for that label to fit in. So I'm just going to hover my mouse in between A and B. I'm going to double click, and it will automatically adjust that cell width. Now, I could have selected all of these cells and applied the same format. So I'm going to go ahead and select A3 down to A16. We'll just go back and do that one more time so you can see it. Again, I'm going to come down to more number formats. Click on date. I'm going to select the long date and click on OK. Now you didn't see anything happen, of course, because we don't have a date in there. So let's just type in January 21st. And you can see that it gives us our long date. So underneath snow removal, again, I'm just going to put in a couple of names of our clients. And then a fictitious invoice number. And we want to put in the amount. So when I type in the amount, maybe $345 and $786, you can see that it's keeping a running total. So I have a running total over in D17, along with over in Q17. Now, if I go back to my year to date, I need to do a little bit more work. So let's go ahead and put some data in each one of these. And just for the sake of time, I'm just going to come over to maybe April. and we'll put in some data so that we have some data to work with. Oops. Doesn't look like I filled that across. There we go. So we have $820 for mowing. Let's go ahead and pop over to fertilizing, and we'll pop over to May and put in some data. Again, it doesn't look like I filled that across. See if I got a total over here. Yes, I do. That's good. And we'll move over to landscaping, and maybe we'll go to June and input some data. Okay, so how do I move all of this information? I now have jobs underneath: snow removal, mowing, fertilizing, and landscaping. However, none of it is in my year to date. So what I need to do is I need to go to snow removal, and then I'm going to click in B2. I'm going to type in the equal sign, and we want this cell to be equal to what is in snow removal in January. So then when I hit my enter key, it automatically pops up over here. So let's go ahead and move down to mowing for a second. And underneath mowing, what do I have? I have mowing in April. So we're going to move over to the month of April, type in the equal sign, come back over to mowing, and we're just going to grab our total for mowing and enter, and it gives me my $820. In fertilizing, I have some fertilizing in May, so I'm going to come back over to year to date, and we'll come down to fertilizing, type in the equal sign, we'll go back to the fertilizing worksheet and grab the total for May in fertilizing and enter. And landscaping, I have in June, so we'll come back to year to date and to June for landscaping, and just type in equal, click on landscaping, and my total for landscaping, and enter. So you can see as I'm putting these in, it's just replicating whatever I have in the worksheets for snow removal, mowing, fertilizer, and landscaping. If I scroll over a little bit, need to increase this. And you can see that my total for income so far is 4160. Now you might be saying to yourself, now, do I have to do that for every single one of these? The answer is no. I can use my fill handle for snow removal, and I can fill that across to December. Now you're not going to see anything because we don't have any numbers for snow removal in any of the other months except for January. So let's just pop back over to snow removal and go to February and enter in some data. When I do that, and come back over to year to date, it now populates that information in February. And the same is for the other months as well. So if I come down to expenses, maybe I've got, gasoline, maybe a new lawnmower, fertilizer, So as I put in my expenses, it now gives me my total expenses, and it is reducing my profit. Need to format this. Again, if you'd like the template that I showed you at the beginning, I will certainly share that with you. Maybe with the new lawnmower. So let's say that was 1765. And you can see as I'm entering this, it's just calculating everything for me over in column O. And fertilizer. So there we have it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead, and we've got about 5 minutes left. I want to go ahead and open back up the chat, and I'm going to share this template with you so that if you would like to utilize it going forward, you certainly can. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. Ooh. Maybe I can't share a document in here. I guess I can't. If you would like the document, if you would like the template, feel free to go ahead and email me, or I can email it to the folks at the Do Space, and they can get it out for you too. Let me go ahead and share my email address with you again. Does anybody have any questions? I know that was kind of fast. I had a lot to cover in setting that up, but hopefully you found it to be useful for your small business or your business going forward. Nobody? Quiet group tonight. All right, well, since we have a couple more minutes, I'm going to go ahead and move this to the side, and let's go ahead and insert a chart. So let's say that I want to chart my income for snow removal, mowing, fertilizer, and landscaping, and my totals for the year. So I'm going to go ahead and select A2 down to A5. I'm going to hold down my control key and select these non-adjacent numbers over here. Let up on my mouse. I'm going to go over to the insert ribbon and into the charts group. Now, typically what I do, because there are so many options for charts, is I click on recommended charts, and it will populate and say, okay, with the data that you have, these are the 4 charts that we recommend. And I'm just going to go ahead and take their very first option, which is a clustered column. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. When I do that, you'll note that I now have 2 more ribbons. I have chart design and format. And the first thing I want to do is I want to move this chart off of my working area. So I'm going to come up to the upper right-hand corner to location. I'm going to click on Move Chart. I want to move that chart to a new sheet, and you can rename that. So maybe 2021 income. Click on OK, and it gives me my chart. Now you have several different options to look at within your charts. The one thing that I do want to point out to you is that if we go back to year to date, let's go ahead and manipulate one of these numbers. So if I go to snow removal, and I add $3,000 to my snow removal, go back to my year to date. It adjusted my year to date for snow removal, and it also will adjust my chart. And I do see that I have a question over here. Hey, just since I've used Excel, I almost forgot it now. It is fun, isn't it? Yes, I agree 100%, Henry. Thank you. All right, folks, we've got about 30 seconds left. What you don't use, you lose. So true. So true. Any other questions before we wrap everything up? All right, well, once again, if you think of something, here is my email address. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for joining me tonight. I hope that you are enjoying the Start Omaha week. Appreciate it and have a great night. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. If you wanted to view this video, like I said in the beginning, we will have it on the Do Space YouTube channel later. Don't forget to go check out our Bean Stack to sign up to win some prizes. And feel free to visit our Do Space website, become a member, and come join us. Have a good one, everyone.